Hey guys, it is actually almost 1 o'clock in the morning, but I just saw Rhaegar's video, the tag that he's doing for everyone. 5 things that you would tell yourself as a GM, 5 tips for yourself in the past. I got a list right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just go down the list, and then I'll tag some people afterwards that I would like to, hear what they would have to say. My number 1 tip to myself would be to actually read the rules of the game that you're trying to DM. It's fine to go in with a vague idea of the rules when you're a player, because more than likely the GM or DM or whatever, he'll probably fill you in on the spots that you're missing out on. But as the DM, you should have a pretty decent idea of the rules, to where you only have to open the book on specific things. And I was pretty bad on that. I usually just made up stuff on the fly, and it was okay for the group that I was in at the time. It was alright. But I found out that we were really missing out on a lot ever since I actually started learning all the rules and reading up on forums and stuff. I've enjoyed the game a lot more. Tip number 2 to myself would be think about your players more than the actual game. Sometimes I would put the ideas that I had for the game over the ideas of like how that's going to play out for the players. So I'd have these ideas that I thought were great concepts, but once I got into game, it just wasn't all that much fun for players. An example of that was one time I limited my players to what races and classes they could play, just to better fit my setting, and they did. They created their characters within what I said, but they didn't really seem to enjoy it at all, so I started being way more lenient, yeah. I'm really good at grammar, by the way, and like words and vocabulary. Yeah, I got an A on my final. Tip number 3, put in effort, but don't be a tryhard. What I mean by that is, of course you want to put your heart and soul into your hobbies. It's just, if you're not, that you're really just, you're taking away from yourself. And you're taking away from the players too when you're not putting in all your effort. But when you become a tryhard, and by what I mean by a tryhard is you're simply just doing things because you think you have to, or because you think you should, and not actually because it's practical or necessary, but more along the lines you're striving for perfection when perfection isn't exactly what you need. Tip number 4, put the why over the what. And this kind of goes back to tip number 2, but a little bit different. Sometimes it sounds really cool when you come up with this concept for a dungeon or an encounter in general, but you don't really think about why. And you really should, because you don't want to. I'm not saying you have to go for realism, because I personally don't go for realism as hard as some people do. I tried one time, but that's don't be a tryhard. But yeah, and you don't want plot holes. You don't want to just throw something into a dungeon just because it sounds cool, and then your players later will be like, "Why did we even fight that?" And you're like, "Oh no, it was just cool." You don't really want that. You want to try to lead into something. But tip number 5, be more strict and don't let the players intimidate you. My problem was that I always roll behind the screen, and it's not so that I can fake my rolls. It's simply so that my players, because I have some good players, and a lot of my players can read my rolls. If I roll a 17 and say it has a 27 hit your armor class, they know that creature has a +10. And I guess it's not a huge deal. I mean, there might be actually ways you can lead into other stats, but they could get a general idea of how I statted this monster out, and then they can use it to their advantage. But yeah, since I've always rolled behind the screen, sometimes when I know I'm about to kill somebody, I would get all nervous, and I would be like, oh man, I really don't want to kill their character, because I know how much that would suck to them. But you gotta understand that, you know, everyone came into this knowing what the game was going to entail. I do stretch some things. Like, if you fall off a cliff, I will give you quite a few tries to save yourself. Because that's just a crappy way to die, man. You fell off a cliff and no one's ever going to see you again. Sucks. And with traps, you know, freaking darts shot out of the wall, and for some reason I rolled really good on all my d6 for the damage, you know, or whatever I roll for the damage, and it just happens to kill you. That sucks. No one really wants to die that way because there's really nothing there. You died. You don't have any story to tell about how you died. You can't say, oh, I died to the dragon, I got a couple good blows and then he finally finished me off. You can't say that. You could be like, I was walking down a hall and I stepped on a pressure plate and then I died. It was great. Now, roll up a new character. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and tag some people because I would love to hear from a few people. I'd have to say, first and foremost, just because I know he's been GM, DM, whatever you want to call it, for quite a while, and all the information I've ever got from him has been very useful. And even the information that I don't agree with still sounds like it could be useful to most other people. So I would love for him to do this, and that is Sean Connors on the Outsiders. I don't know if he still makes videos on YouTube. I think he switched over to Vimeo, if he still makes videos in general. I don't follow anybody that does Vimeo. It's not that I refuse to, it's just that I don't do Vimeo. I don't know. It's just easier for me to log on to YouTube, go down my subscriptions, and pick the couple videos that I find interesting to watch, and then just, you know, go back to my day. But I don't do that for Vimeo. I think I tried to use it once. Okay, other than that, I would actually like to hear from Michael Mitchell. He has yet to be a player in a game, so he's only really DM'd. So I would more along the lines like to hear how that kind of experience, what kind of mindset that kind of experience would put you in. So I think it would be interesting to hear from him. I could probably just message him on Facebook and talk to him about it all day, but I think it'd be interesting to see him talk about it in a video, and plus he hasn't put out a video in a while. It'd be nice to see another video from him. Other than that, you know, a couple other friends like Lee and Brian and, you know, all y'all out there. Just, even if I haven't tagged you and you saw this video, just go ahead and do this. I mean, it's a pretty cool idea. But alright, see you guys.